The timer is on. Nick, you and Thomas, go.
Hello everyone. Today Thomas and I will be providing an analysis of lines 240 to 295 from the first scene of Shakespeare's play King Lear. So this extract takes place at the very beginning of the play and immediately follows King Lear's decision to retire and divide his kingdom among Goneril and Regan, while also disowning Cordelia because she did not hyperbolically flatter her father like her sisters did. So this passage really highlights Goneril and Regan's scheme against their father and the King of France's willingness to marry Cordelia despite her recent loss of status. Throughout this presentation, we will be analyzing the diverging attitudes of Lear and France towards Cordelia, as well as Lear's contrasting public perception and how Shakespeare effectively presents these ideas through the use of irony, diction, and foreshadowing.
Okay, so first of all, there's a huge contrast that's depicted between Cordelia and her sisters by Shakespeare. So Cordelia is depicted as someone who has a really kind heart and who is of a very forgiving nature. If we look at Cordelia's diction in lines 258 to 260, she tells her sisters, "I know you what you are, and like a sister am most loath to call you false as you're named." So this basically means that Cordelia is reluctant to criticize her sisters, even if she knows them for who they are, and this really shows her forgiving nature. On the other hand, Goneril and Regan are full of lying and deceit and are being cruel to Cordelia, even if she's being kind to them. For instance, if we look at line 269, Regan tells Cordelia, "You have obedience granted and well are worth the worst that you have wanted, so you deserve everything that's happening to you." But Cordelia still remains calm and tells her sister, "Well may you prosper." So again, this shows how forgiving she is. So although Lear is blind to the fact that Cordelia is the daughter that loves him the most, France, on the other hand, has a really clear perception of things. So we see the themes of blindness versus sight, the blindness of the king, and the awareness of France. It is actually quite ironic. Shakespeare uses irony to highlight the themes of blindness versus awareness. For instance, it's pretty ironic that Lear hates Cordelia even if she's the only one who has genuine love for him. And what's even more ironic is that his hate for Cordelia is what sparks the love and devotion of France towards Cordelia. So if we look at lines 240 to 242, France tells Cordelia, "You that are most rich being poor, most choice forsaken, and most loved despised." So all of these antitheses show how ironic it is, how contrasting it is that Lear that France has the clear perception of things and Lear is still blind to, and also the fact that France loves Cordelia not in spite of all these bad things happening to her, but because of all these things and the honesty that she's using to face them.
Next, this extract really illustrates the divergence between Lear's public perception and his self-knowledge. Indeed, he holds himself in high esteem and demands respect from his peers. For instance, at line 254, he tells the King of France, "Therefore be gone without our grace, our love, our benison." So here he refers to himself in the first person plural, which indicates the huge amount of respect and importance that he associates with himself. He believes and acts as if he is a superior, honorable authority figure, even though this public perception does not correspond, this self-knowledge does not correspond to his public perception, specifically from Goneril and Regan. So yeah, his two older daughters provide superficial affection, yet Lear is blind to their true nature and their evil intentions that they discuss in his absence. For example, Goneril tells Regan at line 280, "What poor judgment he hath now cast her off appears too gross." The diction employed here reveals what Goneril truly thinks about her father, so he is becoming irresponsible as he gets older, and his judgment has become poor. Furthermore, Goneril says at line 287 that Lear's old age comes with unruly waywardness that infirm and choleric years. And the diction here negatively portrays Lear again as ill-natured and irritable. On the other hand, however, Cordelia's perception of her father directly opposes Goneril and Regan and is much closer to Lear's self-knowledge. So she says at line 260, "Use well our father," and she says this to her sisters, which illustrates how, even though she wasn't treated well by her father, she still wants him to be treated properly because she respects him as a king and as a father. She also stays very civil and respectful with her sisters, even though they insult her. She tells them at line 270, "Time shall unfold what plighted cunning hides," which foreshadows the fact that time would reveal the truth about her sisters. So in summary, it is very ironic how Lear completely misjudges his children. The ones that flattered him the most are the ones that loved him the least. And this passage also shows how Shakespeare used diction to create an imagery surrounding what the characters truly believe about the others.
Now for the tone and mood, we as the audience of the play feel that this excerpt is kind of the calm before the storm. We all feel on the edge of our seats, we feel that something big is going to happen. And this is mainly due to the fact that there's plenty of foreshadowing. So just as Nikiphorou said, there's the line where Cordelia tells her sisters that time shall unfold what pleaded cunning hides. And also at the end of the excerpt, Goneril says, "We must do something, and in the heat, we must strike when the iron is hot." So this really promises for big things to come. And besides the foreshadowing, we feel pity for Cordelia, a pity that's much induced by the King of France. And as for Regan and Goneril, we just feel plain disgust because of their thankless, fake, and cruel attitude towards Lear and Cordelia.
Finally, this extract is important to the play as a whole, as it includes several recurring ideas that are present throughout the play. For instance, the reader gets a first glimpse at the theme of blindness, as Lear is blind to his daughter's true natures, and he completely misjudges his children. And later on in the play, when he finally realizes his mistake, it is too late. He already lost everything. This theme of blindness is also very present in Gloucester's character, as he symbolically gets physically blinded as he realizes that he too misjudged his children. On the other hand, there's characters like Cordelia and France, which are not blind at all and see people's true natures. Also, this extract really illustrates the idea of good versus evil in the play, as the reader can quickly separate the good and well-intended characters like Cordelia from the evil ones like Goneril.
So in conclusion, what's most defining about the play is the different perceptions of Lear and Cordelia of the other characters through the use of irony and foreshadowing from Shakespeare. So we really get a glimpse at the themes of blindness versus sight, appearance versus reality, and self-knowledge versus public perception.
Great, man.
First of all, our extract is from scene 6 of Shakespeare's King Lear. The scene takes place at Gloucester's castle. At the beginning of the scene, Edmund learned that Cornwall and Regan are coming to the castle later that night. He also learned that there is a feud between Albany and Cornwall. Therefore, Edmund decides to use this new information at his advantage, and he calls Edgar, his brother, out of his hiding place, telling him that he needs to flee because Gloucester is looking for him, and because Cornwall is mad at him for taking Albany's side.
They take a breath.
Yeah.
Breathe. Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Yeah. So even though Edgar has no idea what Edmund is talking about, he still listens to him and decides to flee. After the departure of Edgar, Edmund will cut himself with his own sword and begin screaming to attract Gloucester's attention. In our extract, Gloucester is discussing with Edmund about his encounter with Edgar, and we will analyze this extract through the themes of manipulation, loyalty, trust, violence, blindness, the natural order, and rejection, which are developed through irony, diction, and metaphors, and we will also analyze the effect of these devices on the reader.
I start by analyzing how Edmund uses specific phrases and words to influence Gloucester's perceptions of his son and of the confrontation they just had. So Edmund uses manipulation to earn Gloucester's trust and to make sure he seems loyal to his eyes. He uses 4 distinct strategies for that. At first, he flatters Gloucester. On line 43, he says, "Persuade me to the murder of your lordship." He uses the word persuade and not persuaded to make sure Gloucester understands Edgar did not get to him. Afterwards, he uses the word murder. This way, Gloucester understands that Edgar supposedly plan, supposed plan, was very direct and had only one goal, killing his father. Afterwards, he uses the word lordship, and with this word, he's actually giving more power to Gloucester than Gloucester actually has, because Gloucester is an earl, and earls are lower in the social class than lords. Afterwards, he reminds Gloucester of the bond they share, so the bond of a father and a son. On line 27, he says, "The child was bound to the father." In this sentence, he insinuates that he will never hurt somebody with whom he shares the same blood. And with this line, he also gives a negative aspect to Edgar, because Edgar just hurt his own blood when he supposedly hurt Edmund. So the reader sees this part as very ironic, because Edmund doesn't really love Gloucester, he just wants his money. And the good person in this situation is actually Edgar. Afterwards, Edmund reminds Gloucester of how violent the encounter with Edgar was. He uses on line 50 to 51 the words sword, charge, lance. These can be associated to the vocabulary of conflict or violence. By using these words, he exaggerates the violence he was subject to. Afterwards, he also reminds Gloucester of how loyal he was. He remained unyielding before Edgar. From line 67 to 77, he invents a speech Edgar told him. He says that Edgar told him that if he ever told anybody about the confrontation, nobody would believe the illegitimate son, the bastard, over the legitimate son. The reader sees this as a comical scene, because Edmund is actually describing what he himself is doing and saying it's Edgar, and he is also protecting himself against anything Edgar would say. Because Edmund uses all these strategies, Gloucester ends up trusting him blindly. Iman will elaborate on this point.
Indeed, the theme of blindness is showcased through Gloucester's misjudging of his two sons. First, this can be seen in line 62 when Gloucester qualifies Edgar of a murderous caitiff. The word caitiff has a strong negative connotation. It is quite a violent word because it is an insult, which means coward. Therefore, it is quite a harsh language. Moreover, the use of the adjective murderous suggests that Gloucester doesn't give the benefit of the doubt to Edgar, but he condemns him straight away, and he is sure that Edgar will try to kill him in the near future. Also, this diction will shock the reader, obviously, and it will show the reader that Gloucester is really naive for trusting Edmund so easily and for condemning Edgar, his loyal son, without any solid proof. Gloucester's blindness can also be seen in his description of Edmund in line 84. He says that Edmund is a loyal and natural boy. This has a really positive connotation, the word loyal and natural, which contrasts with the previous description Gloucester made of Edgar. Obviously, this is an ironic statement because Gloucester qualifies the villain as a natural and loyal son, and the loyal son as a villain, which can be seen in line 78. This dramatic irony has a comical effect because the reader knows that Gloucester is falling right into Edmund's trap. Furthermore, Gloucester is disturbing the natural order by preferring his illegitimate son, Edmund, to his legitimate one, Edgar. This is seen in line 49 first because Edmund qualifies Edgar's purpose of unnatural, and it is ironic because the natural son has an unnatural purpose, which is parricide, the murder of one's father, which is a terrible and unnatural crime. Gloucester thinks that Edmund is acting naturally, protecting and loving him, but the reader knows that the roles are in fact reversed, and it just highlights again Gloucester's credulity. Moreover, Gloucester declares in line 84-85, "I work the means to make thee capable." This means that Gloucester will do everything in his power to ensure that Edmund will become his heir, which is unnatural and against the legal order and the natural order, because at that time bastard couldn't inherit. The reader understands that men shouldn't use their authority to reverse the natural order. The last theme is rejection. Gloucester rejects his natural son and legitimate son in favor of his illegitimate one. First, Gloucester uses a threatening tone when he talks about Edgar. He says in line 58-59, "Not in this land shall he remain uncaught and found dispatched, he that concealed him there." The hyperbole with the idea of all the land and all the kingdom, which is seen in line 82, showcase Gloucester's intransigent condemning of his son and how he vows vengeance. There's also the use of the word dispatch, which means executus, which is quite a violent diction. And finally, the use of the word death is a metonymy to signify that anyone who will try to hide or help Edgar will be killed by Gloucester's men. Gloucester's disowning of his son will give the reader a sense of déjà vu. Indeed, we can see this through what Gloucester says in line 69. He says, "I never got him." So he is denying to be Edgar's father, and this parallels Lear's rejection of Cordelia in scene 1 and how Lear disowned Cordelia.
In conclusion, we saw that Edmund uses 4 strategies to convince Gloucester of his loyalty. He flatters him, then he reminds him of the bond they share, the bond of the father and son. Then he reminds him of how violent Edgar supposedly was, and of how loyal he was by remaining unyielding before Edgar. But we see also that Gloucester does not see anything in any of the strategies. He remains blind, and he then ends up disturbing the natural order by preferring his illegitimate son Edmund over his legitimate son Edgar, and he ends up rejecting Edgar. And this is a clear link to Lear's rejection of Cordelia, because both fathers favor unloving and manipulative children over their truly loving and loyal ones.
Okay, go ahead, George.
The extract that we are studying is the beginning of scene 9 of